Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the CBI online panel discussion on opportunities in the regenerative tourism market. Today, we will be discussing opportunities for regenerative tourism, and I am very excited about this, and I hope that you are too. I've seen that our attendees come from all over the world. There are especially many attendees from Ethiopia, from India, Indonesia, Jordan, Kenya, Madagascar, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Uganda, Zambia. Also, I saw some attendees from Albania, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, Colombia, Ghana, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Morocco, Nigeria, Pakistan, and many other countries. And personally, I think that regenerative tourism is a very important topic, and I'm very delighted to notice that well, it's a relatively new concept, but there seems to be a global interest in the topic. My name is Tjalling de Boer. I am a researcher for the market analysis studies on the topic of CBI, on the topic of tourism, and today I will be your moderator. Now let's talk about the program of today. Today we will discuss the opportunities in the regenerative tourism market. And the main goals of today are to get you inspired and informed about the regenerative tourism market, to offer some insights in how to become more sustainable and how to practice regenerative tourism, and to offer insights in business opportunities for regenerative tourism. But before we get to that interesting content, I will need to explain some things about GoToWebinar, the tool that we use for this session. Now, the tool is a very simple device, and you only have a few elements in your menu. The first one is the audio pane, and if you hear as well, you don't need to do anything with that part of the menu. Now, if you do have audio problems, you might consider to change your device. So switch from your phone to your laptop or the other way around, but only do so if you have trouble hearing us. Now, since we do not use any handouts, the next important option is the question pane. Now, you need to know that we cannot hear or see you. However, you do have the option to post questions in the field under questions. And I really invite you to do so. We don't have the time to answer all questions, but we try to answer as many questions as possible. Also, on the background, a team of CBI members is available to answer some of your questions. So please add your questions to the question pane. The last thing I would like to mention is that during the webinar, we will be using one or multiple polls. So during the webinar, we will interact with you by raising a question, which will pop up on your screen. You can just click on the answer you prefer most, and well, that's it. Now, Arthur, can you please introduce yourself and CBI to us?
Hi, good morning, Tjalling, and good morning, everyone. So I'll start by sharing my screen. So good morning, everyone, particularly our participants from Asia as well. Good afternoon, our participants from Africa. Good morning still. Let me start by thanking all of you for joining us today. A special welcome to the many CBI companies participating in this webinar. At this moment, CBI supports companies in Jordan, Ethiopia, Zambia, and Uganda. Furthermore, I would like to mention the tourism experts that collaborate with CBI in our market studies and in our business coaching projects. And lastly, a warm welcome to the private and public sector partners that are joining us today as well. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Arthur Schijnaert, and as program manager, I'm responsible for CBI's market research in the tourism sector. And for people that are joining for the first time, I would like to tell a little bit about who we are and what we do. So CBI stands for the Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. We are a Dutch government organization that is funded by the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we consider it our mission to connect small and medium-sized enterprises like yourself to the European market and to create sustainable and inclusive economic growth. And the way we do this is by strengthening the sustainability of SMEs in developing countries. So we encourage exports of value-added products to Europe and to the local region where you're based. We help with finding practical solutions to bottlenecks in the tourism value chain. And one such bottleneck often is a lack of good market information. And this brings me to the goal of today's session. So today we're looking into a very interesting, actually a very hot topic, regenerative tourism. And many destinations, to name a few recent ones, for example, Philippines, Majorca, Saudi Arabia, New Zealand, Hawaii, have embraced this new concept of tourism that goes beyond sustainable tourism. And many tour operators and tourism suppliers are following at this moment. But what is regenerative tourism exactly? What opportunities does it offer? How can you take these opportunities? And which threats are involved? Together with our expert panel, who will be introduced to you shortly, we will explore the opportunities of this growth market. Why do we do this? So the main reason for that is transfer of knowledge. At CBI, we do a lot of research, and we have many experts working for us in the field who coach tourism companies on a daily basis. So with these webinars, we ask them to share their best tips and practical insights with you. I hope that today's webinar will give you lots of new ideas, inspiration, and ultimately that it will help you improve your products and sales to Europe. I wish you all a very good session. Back to you, Tjalling.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Arthur. Now, besides Arthur and me, we also have a great panel of experts. So welcome to you, Daisy. Welcome to you, Thomas and Jasper. I'm very happy that you all are willing to contribute to this session. Well, I would like to introduce you, and could better do that than yourself. So Jasper, could you start and could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everybody. How are you all today? My name is Jasper Heslinga. I work for the NHL Stenning University of Applied Sciences, which is based in the city of Leeuwarden in the Netherlands. One of my tasks there is, of course, education, as in being in an educational facility, where I'm involved in teaching in our master program. And we teach our students from all over the world. We have 22 nationalities at the moment, so a very international group. We teach them about how tourism can contribute to sustainability, to quality of life of people, but also how can you manage this. It's very practical. But actually, most of my time I spent in doing research at our very own institute, which is called the European Tourism Futures Institute, or short ETFI. We do research projects all over the world, which cover a large variety of topics, but all are tourism, leisure, and hospitality related, and are about how can we help destinations and businesses in becoming more future-proof and resilient. I was trained as an academic. I obtained my PhD on sustainable tourism from the University of Groningen. But in my current activities, I very much enjoy using these academic concepts and try to make them very useful in practice and in real life. And I hope to do that today as well.
Great. We're looking forward to that, Jasper. All right. How about you, Daisy? Can you please shortly introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you all for being here today. I am Daisy Scholte. I am impact manager for Dutch tour operator Better Places, and I also work as a freelance travel journalist with a strong focus on sustainability. In 2017, me and my partner, we set off on a world trip, and we traveled around the world for almost 3 years. And during that trip, we tried to travel as sustainable as possible. For instance, we try to minimize our environmental impact by avoiding flights. So we traveled by public transport. We did not buy single-use plastic bottles with water, for example. We used filter bottles to filter our own tap water. And we started our trip as vegetarians, but only after 2 months we decided to go fully vegan to even lower our impact on the climate. On the other hand, we try to maximize our positive impact. For example, we slept in many homestays, we slept in small-scale accommodations, sustainable lodges, all run by the local people. We participated in community-based tourism projects, and we visited several initiatives that would be maybe classified as regenerative today. And now today I use all the ground experience and all the knowledge that I have gained over these years to help Better Places in their mission to limit the environmental and social damage of the travels, and also to make the greatest possible positive contribution to nature, the animals, and the people at the destinations. So briefly about Better Places. Better Places is a social enterprise with a strong focus on sustainability. We are also operating on the German market as Faraway. We offer unique, high-quality travel experiences that are 100% tailor-made by our local travel experts. And I am very proud to say that in 2018, Better Places became the first travel agent in the Netherlands and Belgium with a B Corp certificate. And this means that we meet the highest standard when it comes to creating a positive social and environmental impact. So thank you.
Great, Daisy. Great to hear. How about you, Thomas? Could you please shortly introduce yourself?
Yeah, with pleasure. Hi, everybody. My name is Thomas de Sterck. I live in Antwerp in Belgium, just close to the border with the Netherlands. If you look on a map, Belgium is just a tiny place in the world, and we share the same language as Daisy. So we're sort of a family, everybody. I studied applied economics at university, and then I entered into logistics. It wasn't really my passion, but I just had a good job, had a nice thing going on, but the warmth, the happiness was missing. So I went into travel photography, wildlife photography. Then I started working after 15 years of logistics into tourism, and this place makes me happy. This is where we can make a difference. In 2017, I founded Sulairi with a strong focus on sustainability, and as from 2020, we switched to regenerative travel as we found out that sustainability, there's lots of greenwashing going on. Sustainability is not the next step yet, so that's why we made that choice. We're focusing a bit more on the high-end, mid-range, tailor-made trips with a strong focus on regenerative travel. Back to you, Tjalling.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Now let's talk about what regenerative tourism is. Let's talk about the meaning of regenerative tourism. And before I give the word to Jasper to explain more about the meaning of regenerative tourism, I would like to know from you, our attendees, what you think about regenerative tourism. What you can see now is a poll. What is regenerative tourism? That's my question to you. Regenerative tourism is, and please click the answer you like best. So do you think it's a buzzword which will pass quickly, a marketing concept offering business opportunities? Is it the future of tourism? Or is it the same as sustainable tourism? I see many votes coming in, great. So really like that you are, well, showing that you are involved in this and coming up with your answers. I give you a few seconds more to come up with your vote. Okay, now so there are the answers. A buzzword, marketing concept, future of tourism is the most applied answer. So, well, that's interesting to see. Now Jasper, I am very curious about how you feel about this, and can you explain a bit more about what regenerative tourism is?
Yes, I'll try to do my best. I hope it's indeed the future. Trying to show my screen. So yeah, regenerative tourism, big question. What is it if you want to do something with it during in your business? So let's start with the boring part, defining it. It's a term that has received quite some attention in academic world, but also in society. But what are we actually talking about? But regenerative tourism represents for me at least a sustainable way of traveling and discovering new places. And the main goal for me is is for visitors to have a positive impact. That's I think really important on the holiday destination, which means that they leave this destination in a better condition than they found it. So it's a concept that goes beyond.
Sorry to interrupt you, Jasper. I don't see that. We can't see your screen. Can you show it, or?
I have it. Can you try again?
Yeah, we can't see the screen right now.
Now it's good.
It's on the, yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, so the concept of regenerative tourism is something that goes beyond not damaging the environment, and yeah, looks in an active way to revitalize and regenerate it. So resulting in a positive cycle of impacts instead of a negative one. So local communities and economies can benefit from that, and by doing so, even build back better. A concrete example, you can think of a farmer that does, together with tourism professionals, restore degraded lands, for example, a desert, or local communities that conserve a pristine rainforest with an eco-lodge, or restoring biodiversity by stopping livestock grazing and reintroduce wild animals. But I think via the other speakers, you will hear many more practical examples. You might wonder, we're talking about sustainable tourism also quite a lot. How is that different? Well, for me, and apparently also according to the audience, sustainable tourism was a bit of the jargon of yesterday, and regenerative tourism is the new word of today, and for me also the future. Because the implications of regenerative tourism are more than just a temporary trend. So like I said, regenerative tourism is the idea that tourism can leave a place better than it was before, while sustainability, in comparison, is about leaving something as it is in the same way. So it doesn't improve, but it stays the same. So in other words, it doesn't cause extra damage. And also in the case of sustainable tourism, this is often a trade-off between positive and negative impacts. Yeah, and that's different. So regenerative tourism therefore has a different goal and requires a change in our economic model and the way we look at society. So instead of seeking only growth and volume, you need to look for more a qualitative development that improves human health and well-being through this ecosystem health. And I think regenerative tourism offers an important set of solutions that help rethink and rebuild the tourism industry. And by doing so, it can make local economies better, preserve local cultures, biodiversity, while at the same time offering a memorable and authentic life-changing experience to the guests you're hosting, and doing so, allowing the destination to improve. Back to you, Tjalling.
Thank you very much, Jasper. Now, I think that really helped, and it was a very clear explanation on the meaning of regenerative tourism. Now, in the meantime, I saw that there already were some interesting questions added to the question pane, and I would kindly like to remind you that if you do have any questions coming up, please add those to the question pane, and we will answer those later during this session. Now, before we go into the next block, the next part of this this webinar, and explain more about sustainability opportunities, I do have another question for you. So there will be another question coming up very soon. Yeah, there it is. Which opportunities does regenerative tourism offer? Regenerative tourism mainly offers the opportunity to, and please submit your answer. What opportunities do you think that regenerative tourism has? I see many votes coming in, so great that you're participating. I'll give you a few more seconds to submit your answer. Okay, and there are the results. Very interesting. Most people definitely applied for all of the above. And well, the next second best most chosen option is to contribute to the local economy. Interesting. And now, Thomas, you are the founder of Sulairi, and you offer regenerative tourism. Is it really possible that tourism improves a destination? And how do you do this at Sulairi?
Thanks, Tjalling. Shall I take over the presentation?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think this should be okay now. Yeah.
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, perfectly. We have several parts that we've decided to put in motion, and the whole idea is how to make this planet, the place you're visiting, a better place. So that's the idea. First thing we did is implementing and investing in local heroes. And what do we mean with local heroes? Those are projects that invest in local communities, in wildlife, biodiversity, everything which is just more than sustainable. Sustainable is like preserving what it is like now. And if you invest in a product, in a project which generates more than sustainability, then that's one of the projects that are available for investing in. Let me show you in which one we are investing at the moment. I say investing because it's an investment in our future. This Musekese Foundation, it's a fantastic project. It's situated in Zambia, in the Kafue area, in the national park. And the Musekese Foundation has several parts where they work for. They have the anti-poaching unit. That's the guys you see here. They look up for poaching, they de-snare, they manage a bit the wildlife, they do accounts of the wildlife. They really go into the bush. There's a real heroes. Sometimes they really get shot at by poachings. They also do coloring, they monitor the wildlife, they have bush cameras, they just look up everything. You can see the screen where the woman is looking at. They can monitor every movement of the wildlife, but also of the ranges. They're involved in local communities as well. All the communities that live around the area next to the national park, they help with schooling, they help with education, and also with the healthcare. It's a project where everybody in the project benefits. So supporting this project means you're not only supporting the wildlife, you're also supporting the communities. It's just bigger than sustainability. I hope it clarifies this a bit. Lowering the impact of travel, that's yeah, it's an easy one. With easy, I mean it's like everybody says, sure, you have to lower the impact of travel, and carbon offset is one of the most famous ways to do so. You can buy airplane tickets, and then you can pay like a couple of euros, and then that means that sorry, I was just distracted a bit. The carbon offset, it means like you can pay for a couple of euros, and somewhere on the planet a tree gets planted, and that's how it's offset. And that's not enough. We're investing as well from every booking. We're doing full complete carbon offset, and we're sponsoring a project in Burkina Faso. That's a place where they make new stoves, where the communities cook together and reduce this way. This is a very efficient way of burning wood. It reduces apparently 60% of the normal amount of wood you need for cooking. So communities are involved. The women are making the stove themselves. It's bigger than just preserving the amounts of wood needed for cooking, but the communities are involved as well in maintaining the open area kitchens. And here you can see the pictures. I'm going a bit quicker because I have the tendency to elaborate a bit too much. My apologies. We also have to educate a bit our clients. I always try to promote direct flights, so you don't burn too much fuel. Go straight forward. Stay longer in one place. Don't go hopping like 1 day here, 2 days there, 3 days there. Just stay for like 4 or 5 days at the same place. Enjoy the area and don't tick off your bucket list items. We will make the accommodation choices for our clients as much as possible, as we have insights in how sustainable and regenerative those accommodations are. Etc. We also have a travel app for paperless travel. It's throughout the whole company, we try to work it out like in the most sustainable way it is. Also the partnerships, and that's I think where you all are very interested in is we always check the vision, the mission, and the goal of the companies we work with. We work only with local companies and DMCs. In every trip, I like to insert a local project that our clients can visit, depending on the interest of the clients and if they want to or not. And our preference goes to places and partners accommodations where there's really an impact. For example, our DMC in Kenya also invest in Tsavo Wildlife Trust, in Kenya's wildlife services. So through working to us, we have an impact. Through working the choices we made for DMC and partnerships, they have an impact as well. And you can see it builds up and then it can go quickly. And then the positive impact grows very fast. Our company as well, we work with solar powers. We have maximum use of rainwater. We have tanks in the ground, so we don't use tap water too much. So the green energy, of course, and paperless as much as possible. These are evident things, but they all make a difference. All those small things, all those things in the whole chain make quite a difference in building up regenerative tourism. I think it's back to you, Tjalling.
Yeah, thank you very much, Thomas, for sharing your, perhaps it might sound like an overload, but a lot of things you do at Scholte to contribute. And obviously, the next question is for you, Daisy, how does Better Places contribute? I mean, you have a lot of experience in sustainable tourism. So, we are just very curious to hear about your thoughts on making the world a better place.
Yes. So can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. So at Better Places, we operate according to what we call the 3 pillars of sustainable traveling, which are support and promote local initiatives, lower the CO2 emissions of traveling, and protect, respect, and travel plastic free. So I will go through all of these 3 pillars to show you some examples of how we do this. So the first one, support and promote local initiatives. So we promote meet the local experiences and homestays, and we always aim to include a minimum of 2 meet the local experiences in every trip we sell. We make use of small scale and locally run accommodations and also sustainable accommodations as much as possible. And to assess whether a accommodation is sustainable, we created a checklist with 10 criteria, and a hotel has to tick at least 7 boxes to be classified as sustainable. And by doing so, we are, of course, promoting and supporting these initiatives, but we are also offering unique experiences to our travelers. I'll give you an example. So this is a bio-rock homestay in Pemuteran in Indonesia. It's located on Bali. And I believe this is a great example of what I believe is regenerative tourism. It's a small-scale accommodation in a small fishing town. And once back in the days, the only income for these people in the village was fishing. And after a while, they started dynamite fishing to get a greater income. And of course, this had a devastating effect on the coral. At the same time, the El Nino, which is like a heat wave in the sea, also devastated the corals. and it resulted in a great loss of sea life and corals, and of course also a loss of income for the local people. But today it's a completely different place. Through education and cooperation, the local people now understand that the environmental value of the reefs, and they have put in many efforts to restore and protect the coral. And in this program, tourism is key. So BioRock is a coral reef restoration project, and they use a technique of low voltage electrical shocks on artificial structures under the water, and this helps to quickly grow the corals. And this project has changed the livelihood and the economy of the whole region. Former fishermen have been trained to become divers, so they are maintaining the structures, but they also run the hotels and the restaurants. And today, tourists can enjoy the beautiful structures that are completely covered in the corals by snorkeling and diving. And they can even, and I think this is a brilliant idea, they can put their name into these structures, and then the coral will grow on it. And of course, they have to pay for this, and the money goes straight into the BioRock program. And now they see that the fish population has been restored, but at the same time, fishing is not the main source of income anymore. The local people have even took the initiative to assign a big part of the sea near the village as a protected marine area, and this means that you're not even allowed to go fishing there anymore. So this is a great example of regenerative tourism, and also by sending our clients to stay in the BioRock homestay and to go snorkeling and be in that village. We are contributing to this project. So we also launched a series of what we call impact trips, and they must comply with strict sustainability criteria. For example, they cannot include domestic flights. They have to have a minimum of 18 days and at least 2 meet the local excursions included. And also importantly, we donate 10% of our annual profits to good causes. And we communicate this on our website with the numbers and the causes that are receiving these donations. The second pillar is to lower the CO2 emissions of traveling. So in January 2020, Better Places was one of the 14 first signatories to sign the Tourism Declares a Climate Emergency. And as part of this commitment, we have published an extensive climate emergency plan in which we explain how we are going to decrease our overall CO2 emissions with 55% by 2013 in comparison to numbers of 2019, so before COVID. And I have to say that we believe that carbon offsetting is not a solution, although many states state it as a solution to decreasing your CO2 emissions. So we believe that the only way forward is to decrease your CO2 emissions as much as possible. You have to understand that up to 80% of the CO2 emissions of a trip are caused by the flight to and from a destination. So in order to lower your footprint, or our footprint, we have started to focus on destinations closer to home. And to give you an example, as you can see in this infographic, a flight from Amsterdam to Bangkok causes 10 times as many greenhouse gases as a flight from Amsterdam to Split in Croatia. So when a traveler is planning a holiday to enjoy beautiful beaches, lovely sunshine, we believe they should rather go to Croatia when your departure destination is the Netherlands instead of Thailand. So we communicate this with our travelers, and we try to inspire them to make better choices. And therefore, we have also designed trips in Europe that are not an addition to the long haul big holiday, but an alternative to your long haul trip. So other actions that we take to lower our CO2 emissions is we do compensate our trips as long as that there is no better alternative. But it is very important when we calculate our total emissions, we take into account scope 1 and 2, which includes the emissions caused in our office, the hotels we use, activities, transport in the destination. But we also take into account the emissions caused in scope 3. And this is indirect emissions, which of course includes the independently booked flight to and from the destination of our travelers. And I really, really want to emphasize the importance of taking scope 3 into account when measuring your CO2 emissions, because I believe the flight wouldn't have taken place if it wasn't for you as a tour operator offering and selling the trip. So therefore, I believe you are responsible for the carbon emissions that are caused by these flights. Unfortunately, we see that many tour operators choose to only compensate and reduce the CO2 emissions in scope 1 and 2. But this, of course, is not going to have the effect that we need to slow down climate change. This is only peanuts. So on top of compensating, we also impose a voluntary flight tax upon ourselves of 15 euros per client that travels outside of Europe and 6 euros per client that travels within Europe. And by the end of the year, we invest this money in accelerating the energy transition through projects by Lend a Hand. And in 2019, for example, this has resulted in an investment of 20,000 euros. And then to go on to the third pillar, which is protect, respect, and travel plastic free. A few things that we do. So in cooperation with the World Animal Protection, we have created an animal welfare policy in which we declare to not take part in any activities that involve direct interaction with wild animals. So this includes popular activities like washing and feeding elephants, touching baby turtles, or visiting so-called sanctuaries where visitors can cuddle with, for example, lion cubs. So we do not offer this anymore, although customers do ask for it, and then we explain why. Another thing we do is we help travelers to reduce their use of single-use plastics. And we have, for example, we have teamed up with Water2Go. They have created a filter bottle to help filter tap water so it becomes drinkable. And we offer our clients a discount on these bottles. And also we work together with our DMCs and the accommodations to make it easier for customers to not use single-use plastics. And a great example is what our DMCs in Tanzania have achieved. So they are now offering waste-free safaris in Tanzania. When you go on a safari in the Serengeti, it is very common that customers get a pre-packed lunch from the accommodation before they enter the park. And these lunches, they cause a lot of waste, carton and plastic waste. And we are now the only tour operator that offers lunch on real plates, cutlery and cups. And these are being washed by the lodges and refilled the next day with a delicious lunch for the next day safari. And also our jeeps are fitted with water taps for our customers to refill their bottles during the safari. So there's no need for them to take plastic bottles on their safaris. So thank you. Back to you, Tjalling.
Thank you very much for that very extensive answer, Daisy. That was a lot of information. So I can imagine that this can be a bit overwhelming to you. And now you will receive the slideshow after the presentation, so shortly. And you will also be able to visit or to see the webinar on YouTube at a later date. So in the meantime, right now we do have some questions. We have some time for answering the questions that come in. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to send in any more questions. We do have a lot of time later this session for answering some questions. So if you do have any questions, please ask them and put them in the question pane. But first of all, let's get to the questions that we received already. Now, Thomas, or actually all the experts, could you please turn on your camera so we can have a discussion about the questions coming in. The first question is, I would like to ask Thomas first, how to make a connection and or presentation with tour operators from the Netherlands and Belgium if you are a DMC offering sustainable tourism. Do you have any ideas on that?
That's a very good question. It's always selling your offerings through via European tour operators is always a good choice. It's a good market channel. It's very important to communicate how you stand out from your competition. What's your USP, if you say like a unique selling proposition, and make this detailed description of your product. You have to really try to explain to the other party what you stand for, and you can find some tips in the study of the CBI, of course, which everybody, I would say, have a good read of it. It's complete, it's very good. And when it comes to regenerative tourism, it's very important to provide information about how you reduce your negative impacts, like the carbon offset, and how do you contribute to society, for instance. How do you see, what's your vision and what's your goal of the company? I think you have to explain that and see if there's a match between the DMC or the tour operator. If there's a match, then you're probably going for a long-term partnership. Tjalling?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that is a very clear answer. Now, there was another question coming in on certification for regenerative tourism. Now, in our study, we did not find any certification for regenerative tourism, did we, Jasper?
Not as far as I could find, at least, because it's a relatively new concept, of course, and it's constantly evolving. More and more businesses are starting with it. But as far as I can found, and I think Thomas and Daisy might confirm, there's no certification standard yet. So what I did include in the study is some sustainability standards. So maybe it's a good start. Yeah, to start from there and then move on until maybe sometimes someday there's also a standard for regenerative tourism.
Yeah, yeah. And could you mention again, Daisy, which certification did you have at Better Places?
We have several, but the one I mentioned at the start of this presentation was a B Corp certificate. And B Corp is it stands for benefit corporations. And as a social enterprise, you can get a B Corp certification, and you have to go through a very strict screening, and you have to show your impact on your social impact and your environmental impact, and then I don't know from the top of my head, but every few years you have to do a rescreening to see if you're still on top of what you are claiming to do, and if you're reaching your goals, and then you can be part of the B Corp certification. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Now another question for you as well, Daisy. What do you think classifies as a regenerative experience?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you, Gillian. I saw it coming in. So I have to be honest that we are still trying to fully understand what regenerative tourism is exactly how it compares to sustainable traveling, and how we can incorporate it into our businesses. But to try and answer your question, I think when it comes to offering regenerative tourism, I think we have to see that the tourist or the customer is not key. It is the destination and the local people that we have to keep in mind. So we need to focus on what they gain from tourism, from us sending our tourists to that location, to these people. But we also need to ask them what they need. So because we have all these assumptions of what people need and what we can offer them, but we sometimes forget to ask the people who are involved what they need. So I think, yeah, to sum it up, the key is not the tourist, but the destination and the local people. So I hope that's answers your question.
Thank you, Daisy. Now another question coming in was for Jasper. How important how will regenerative tourism play a part in the post-pandemic recovery?
Very interesting question indeed. Because when COVID struck, I think many of us also saw it as a window of opportunity. So a chance to reconsider how we do tourism and maybe do it differently. Because traditional business models may have failed, and maybe there's an opportunity for a more sustainable, or maybe even regenerative business model. So there was definitely an opportunity, if you ask me. But if you look at current developments, I'm a bit hesitant to say that maybe things are going back the way they were. Some probably made the change, but the large majority probably hasn't, because there's this tendency to go back to the known business model and think in short term, while actually for regenerative tourism, you also have to keep in the long-term picture in mind. So that's very important. And I think in the blocks that are coming up, we're also giving some tips and suggestions how you as a business can develop a more long-term strategy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Thomas, would you, is there anything you could add to that, or Daisy? Or no, that's fine. Okay, thank you very much. Let me see. Yeah, about the Daisy, there was one question coming in about the impact of the 10% donation. That was something you measured during your answer earlier.
Yeah, so I think Annemieke wanted to know what the impact is, how we measure the impact of our 10% donations that we do every year. So of course, it's hard to know the exact impact of all the organizations that we donate to, and people are very critical on donations to charities. But we use a charity that's called Give Well, and this is an independent nonprofit, and they focus on helping us to do as much good as possible. So they measure the impact of charities and see how your money is spent best. So because of them, we don't have to do it ourselves, so they make our life much easier. So we try to find charities that are presented by Give Well. And for example, we every year we donate to Artsen zonder Grenzen, which is in English Doctors Without Borders, I guess, yeah. So this is an example of one of those charities. And we also try to donate to charities that have the same goal as we have when it comes to making a better place to live for the local people.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer, Daisy, and Thomas and Jasper as well, of course. I saw there were, well, actually quite a lot of questions coming in, which were very interesting to discuss here during our panel. But unfortunately, we only have limited time. However, well, we do have some time later on during our webinar So if you do you have any questions, please add those to the question pane and notice that there is also a team of experts from CBI answering part of the questions. In the meantime, I would like to go to the next topic, which is the business opportunities. So there are many, we've seen that there are many opportunities to contribute to a better world with tourism. But as a company, you also need to make money, and especially after suffering from the corona pandemic. Now, which business opportunities does it offer, and how do you seize these opportunities? And Daisy, I would like to first ask this question to you. Which business opportunities do you see for regenerative tourism?
Yeah, so well, actually, we see that there is a growing demand for trips with personal attention and authentic experiences. And actually, this is even growing even more after the COVID pandemic. As a business opportunity, it really pays to step away from mass tourism and ticking the bucket lists, and to create personal experiences and authentic experiences that are also contributing to a better life for the people involved in the destination. We also believe that offering sustainable and regenerative experiences is part of offering quality. And since tourism is a service industry, this means that if you treat your partners and everyone involved, if you treat them well by offering trainings and fair wages, for example, this will result in better service and therefore happy customers and returning customers. And we do see this in practice. We have set the bar very high. And we are always aiming to have a customer review of a 9 out of 10 or higher. And so far, we are getting just that. So it is absolutely an opportunity to grow your business. But also, on the other hand, we have to realize that more and more businesses are now being sued by scientists and activists who are for claiming to be, for example, a net zero, but not actually living up to that claim. So what we've seen recently, that KLM, the Dutch airline, was sued, and they lost the case against them because they were claiming to offer climate neutral flights. And how do they do this? They do this by planting trees to compensate for the CO2 emissions. Now, the judge has ruled that it has not been proven that planting trees is an effective way to compensate for your emissions. So I would really like to say that it's only a matter of time before governments will ban or even punish companies for making these kind of claims. So instead of making these claims and try to be ahead of this and don't take part in greenwashing schemes, but be serious about your climate actions and about your impact measures. And because otherwise you might lose your credibility, and then you will lose customers as well. So yeah, back to you, Tjalling.
Thank you very much for that extensive answer, Daisy. So we see clearly that there are some opportunities also for some business opportunities for, well, engaging in regenerative tourism. Now that was the story by Daisy. I'm also wondering about your story, Thomas. Could you inform us about which business opportunities you see within regenerative tourism?
Yep, here we go. You can see my screen, Tjalling?
Yeah,
yep, perfect. I made some bullet points to pinpoint some things from my experience, but regenerative travel is going to be the next hot thing. It's a new trend. It's something that will not go away. It's like sustainability took some time to grow. Now everybody's thinking sustainable ways. Regenerative travel is going the same way. So it's a new trend. And if you start thinking about it now, implementing it right now, then you'll be the first of a lot. You'll be a game changer. You'll be the first one. And this you give it a head start, an advantage on your competition. At the same time, because you're looking and thinking a lot about the regenerative travel, you have in more intense context with your DMCs, with your providers, your accommodations, and so your partners in general. And it gives an increased loyalty. You can really have some friendship bonds growing out of it, even with your clients. You increase your loyalty, and that's not with the partners, but with the clients as well. Once they travel with you, in my case, then they will automatically come back. They know what it's about. They know where their money is going. Their money is going through. They know they are adding to a better world. All those things, it's a package, but the loyalty for me is the most important thing for the business. And the loyalty generates good income and just people coming back. And then I try to find a sentence where sustainability and regenerative travel in a good way come together. So it's like delivering an active contribution to a better world makes your business sustainable. So as you heard before, it's a long-term decision. Don't go for the quick win, because that doesn't work for regenerative travel. Think long-term, think about your purpose, and then good things will happen. Back to you, Tjalling.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So we heard that there are many opportunities for making the world better with sustainable regenerative tourism. We also heard about the implications, or the opportunities that the business opportunities that regenerative tourism offers. Now let's talk a bit more about the implications it has for you as a tour operator or a DMC. But before we get into that interesting topic, I do have a question for you, and that is, what are the implications for regenerative tourism suppliers? It mainly means increasing your price to contribute, decreasing margins, adaptation of all your business processes, and adaptation of business processes and stakeholders. So please submit your answers, and I'm very curious about your opinions. So answers are coming in. You get many votes, so great. I really like that you're being interactive. Giving you a few more seconds to contribute and to submit your answers. Now here are the answers. Most attendees think that it mainly means adaptation of business processes and stakeholders, followed by adaptation of all the business processes. Thank you very much for your contribution. Now, Jasper, I'm very curious about your opinions. What do you think about this? What does it require from a business to be involved in regenerative tourism?
Based on the poll, I was actually hoping for the last answer, because I think that very well fits the story I'm about to tell you. Is the screen visible now?
Yeah, it is.
Very good. So I wrote in the article, which is on the CBI website at the moment, I wrote the article on basically everything we discussed, but it's also about these principles and these requirements, and I now selecting a few of them just to give you an idea. But if you want to know more, please read the article. So the first one is actually to see the bigger picture, the whole picture, and it's important to recognize that. Oh, is the screen still visible? Like,
yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, good. That actually the tourism is it's not only your business, of course, it's also the ecosystem, the natural resources, the cultural assets you have in your destination, the traditions, everything. So it's the whole package. So try to see it as a whole. Another one is about collaboration. It's important not only to be involved in your own business, of course, but also to seek collaboration with all other stakeholders in terms of equal participation with a government, with other private sector parties, civil society organizations, and yeah, that represents all the diversities that are in the community. So try to be involved in these kind of processes as well. Third one is, I think we talked about this as well, it's choose quality over quantity. So manage a tourism based not only on the quantity of visitors, but also the quality of the visitations or the experience they have, because this can help sustain the character of the destination and also benefit local communities. A fourth one is diversify your source markets. We talked about COVID already a little bit, because for many destinations, I think this showed that international travel was stopping very suddenly. Therefore, I think it's important not only to focus on international tourists, but also develop a strategy for domestic tourism, which makes your company and the destination as a whole more resilient in the face of a crisis. But at the same time, focusing on your domestic markets, you also make people aware of their own natural and cultural heritage at the same time. And a final point I want to make is, of course, to operate your business responsibility. So businesses that do the right thing should be incentivized and rewarded for doing this. And when you are doing your business in a regenerative way, also try to look beyond your own business and take a look at your whole supply chain. See if you can inspire them as well and work with suppliers that think the same way and allow for a higher quality of products and experiences. So these were, in a very short way, 5 principles I've selected out of this whole study, which I think, yeah, go to work with it. It's not easy to start with, but yeah, I would just look into it and go for it.
Thank you, Jasper.
Thank you, Tjalling.
Yeah, I think that's a very extensive answer. Also very interesting because you actually gave the people there a lot of homework to do. I'm wondering about your opinion, Thomas. How do you start? Where do you start with all? There's so much to do to become really regenerative. Where do you start?
As you said, it's lots of homework to do, lots of reading, but you have to start with the mindset. As Jasper highlighted, like 5 of the 13 principles, keep those 13 principles in mind, just the headlines, give it a good read, and from time to time, just pick it up again, have a read, refresh your memory and your thoughts. But for me, very important is to define your goal. Sorry?
We do not see your, we don't see your screen. Could you share your
okay. I thought
slideshow?
No one can see. Can you try to give me the rights again? No, that's your screen. Okay. Is it okay now?
No, I don't see it.
I just have one slide. Maybe you can put your presentation on, and it's just one slide. Yeah, thanks, Tjalling. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, those 13 principles. For me, very important was for myself, but also for the company, is to define the goal and the mission and the vision of your company. Why are you going to go into regenerative tourism? It's not a selling thing. It has to be sort of in the genes, in the DNA of your company. It has to go through every part of your business. So you have to really give it a good thought about your goal, the mission, and the vision, and implement it. Always try to see the whole picture. That's what's one of the principles that Jasper talked about. And see the picture, define the goal, and work towards the goal. And because the goal will change, regenerative travel is just beginning, and it will change gradually. So define your goal, redefine it, and continue. It's a long process, but go with the flow and implement it in the business. As before, find your partners that understand your philosophy. Get information and feedback. Talk with partners. More people you can talk with, and express your vision. Tell them your story and why you're doing it, and give feedback from your personal and professional environment. All those things will build up your knowledge and create the DNA of your company. Again, implement it, and very important as well, communicate it. Make it, tell it to everybody. You know, we had a PR campaign that worked pretty well. It is a very important thing that you can communicate to people what you're doing, what your contribution is, and actually what the contribution of everybody who's traveling with your company, of working with your company, what their contribution to the planet is. I think Better Place is going to tell you a bit more about how they measure it. We communicate how much money we donate. There has to be some transparency as well in the things you're doing. You need to be very clear about your business proposition, and keep increasing and updating your knowledge on regenerative travel or regenerative businesses in general. As I said, it's a process, but it's a fun one to go with, and you'll see that it's something that will continue to challenge you, and you will grow as a person and your company and the planet. So that's a bit of my thing that I wanted to give to you. So back to you, Tjalling.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So you already told a bit about transparency, and the fact that transparency is an important aspect of regenerative tourism. Well, Daisy, that brings me to you. Better Places transparency is key. I'm very curious about how do you measure the impact? I'm trying to give you the presenter rights. There they are.
Thank you. Yes, so yeah, I mean, it is all about knowing what is your impact, because you cannot improve if you don't know what you are doing at the moment, what your baseline is. And so this is the challenge that we have took upon ourselves in the past years, to how to measure the impact, the positive and the negative impact of our trips. So we have divided this in two ways, or two things that we measure. So first of all, we measure the impact of our example trips. So these are the itineraries that we publish on our website to inspire potential travelers, but also to use as a starting point when creating individual trips. And the other part is measuring the actual trips booked by our clients. And I will go, we will have a look at both. So we measure the impact of our trips based on the 3 pillars of sustainable traveling that I have discussed before. And we have created a score from 0 to 5 points for positive and the negative impact of our trips. So let's have a look at the impact of a example trip in Tanzania. So this is the highlight trip in Tanzania. So as you can see, we have the 3 pillars for positive impact, and this is how they score on these 3 pillars. So for example, as you can see, they have the maximum score for sustainable hotels. So in this particular itinerary, we use a lot of small-scale accommodations that are always employing local people. We use sustainable accommodations, But you can also see that there's no points for homestays. So in this case, it is not very common to homestays in Tanzania, and therefore we cannot include them in our trips. And so we are not having that kind of impact, positive impact. So there's no points for that. And for example, in the third pillar, protect, respect, and travel plastic free, a trip to Tanzania in general is much about nature and visiting national parks. You pay a lot of money to visit these parks, and this money goes into preserving and maintaining the national parks. And therefore, in this particular trip, you have a very high score when it comes to visiting national parks and nature conservation. So next to the positive impact, we also measure the negative impact. So we look at the CO2 emissions of the return flights. We look at whether there are domestic flights and how many, and we give points for the kilometers traveled over land. And of course, you have to see this as negative points. So you want to have these bars as low as possible. But the CO2 emission from the flight, you can't really change that. So flying to Tanzania obviously has a very big impact on the climate. In this particular trip, there's one domestic flight included to Zanzibar. So therefore, they also get a negative point for that. And the kilometers over land, of course, are causing the more you travel, the more CO2 emissions you are causing. So this is what we measure as well. And this is what our customers see when they go to our website and they look at the highlight trip, for example, to Tanzania. This is placed on top of the trip, and they get a direct view of positive and negative impact. When you hover on the colors, you can click on it, and then you get an extensive explanation of what these percentages mean and how you can contribute to raise the numbers when you are designing your trip. So all these figures, they help us to gain insight in the effects that we are having with our trips, both positive and negative. But it also encourages our DMCs to improve their trips. For example, by including more elements with a positive impact, like a homestay or a meet the local experience. And we are already seeing this effect when we are working together on these impact scores with our DMCs. They are already trying to look for alternatives for domestic flights. They are also looking for homestays that they can include in their trips to raise the score of their trips. And last but not least, it also helps to inspire our customers and show them what the effects of their trip are and what they can be if they include certain things, or if they choose to take a train instead of a domestic flight, for example, to get a better score. So in addition to all this information, we also publish an extensive blog about the effects of tourism on a destination in general. But we also research what our contribution is to this and how we can deal with the challenges. For example, the challenges of over-tourism. How can we make sure that we are not part of the problem anymore, but part of the solution? And then this is the part where it gets really interesting, because here we are talking about measuring the impact of each individual trip that has been booked by Better Places. And this is the real thing. So it's a big challenge, of course, because we're talking about, I'm talking about 2019 numbers, so before COVID. We're talking about 2,000 trips and more than 5,000 travelers to more than 50 destinations. And so we have created a tool in which we can collect all the necessary data to be able to measure the positive and negative impact of these trips. I can do a whole webinar about how this tool works, but I'll save you this time. So we ask our DMCs. So this is in short. We ask our DMCs to fill out an online form after each booking that has been confirmed. So this takes them about 5 minutes. So in this form, for instance, they need to fill in the number of meet the local excursions, the number of small-scale accommodations, homestays, etc., that are included in that particular trip. Of course, we have created a guideline with all the criteria to be able to assess what classifies as a meet the local excursion or what is a homestay. It is important that we are on the same page on this. And then all this data is automatically collected in one big file, and then we can extract the numbers as we like. So, for example, we can see exactly how many homestays we have sold in Cuba in the first quarter of this year, for example, or how many meet the local experiences on average per trip in Tanzania were sold. And we get these kind of graphs, and we can, see all the numbers that we need. And this data is incredibly valuable because it gives us insight in our sustainable performances. We need to know this, have this information to be able to reach our social and our climate goals. But it also means for our DMCs that they can see how they are performing. So at any time they want, they can get an overview of their performance at that moment. They can see, for example, how many meet the local excursions they have sold so far, where they can improve, if they are living up to their promise of having a certain number of sustainable accommodations. And if not, they can start to improve because now they have the actual figures. So by the end of the year, we collect all the data, and then we can see where we are at, and we can set new goals for the next year to improve our positive impact even more. So, for example, one of our goals is that each trip outside of Europe should have a minimum of 17 days. And with this data, we can see exactly which country is meeting this criteria and which country is not. And then if a country is not, we can have a conversation with our DMC and see why this is the case, and we can see how we can help them to improve this and get people to travel for a minimum of 17 days. But we can also focus our advertising and awareness campaigns, for example, towards customers on these certain topics that need improvement. And it's important to say that as the impact manager, I am not doing all this work by myself. We are getting the help from students from a university in Wageningen, and they are doing their internship at Better Places. And in this way, we are all working together and sharing the knowledge from our side to them, and also their knowledge as young students to us. And this is very valuable for us. So this is impact measurement in a tiny nutshell.
Thank you very much, Daisy. That was indeed, a nutshell, but it was a lot to tell, and I think that was very specific. So that's one thing that I very liked about your answer. Now we do have some time to answer some of the questions that in the meantime came in. And to start with the topic that Daisy was just talking about, I would like to ask you, Thomas. We just heard about how Better Places is trying to be as transparent as possible. How do you deal with that at Sulairi?
Yeah, very good question. I think Daisy, Better Places, they worked out a fantastic way to communicate it and to figure it out. For us, we have a very diverse product, I think Better Place as well, but we get so many specific questions. For us, it's very difficult to put a number on every item or every product with what people are going to do. For example, just a quick one. I had a client, they want to go surfing. They had kids who want to go surfing in South Africa. So like, okay, how can I make that sustainable or regenerative? Then I looked it up and I found the former South African world champion of surfing. And she's running a project. So she's putting herself as a tutor for one day, but all the revenue of being paid to her are going into another project that helps local communities in an educational way about marine life. So in that way, offering that kind of project is increasing the regenerative part of travel. We don't figure it out. We don't have the numbers. The only numbers we have is how much do we as a company contribute to the project in Kafue. It's a minimum of 5% per booking. Other things is like we can show how many carbon offset we had last year. Those are the numbers we can communicate, but we don't have a nice tool as Daisy because it's too diverse and too complex for us to put that in order. So we're always looking at the balance, like if you're putting something in place, is the balance really shifting towards the good way, to the positive impact? And if the balance is going to the negative impact, we don't offer it.
It's clear. Thank you, Thomas. Now, another question was coming in, is for you, Daisy. It was about the emission of the flight. If this flight is so emission intensive, do you think that not using plastic bottles, providing money to local projects, etc., is enough to actually make a positive impact?
Yeah, so I would also, before I answer this question, quickly respond to Thomas, because I think when it comes to the diversity of our trips, we are quite comparable as an organization. And this, of course, is the big challenge. Like, how do you compare impact in Tanzania to impact in Costa Rica? So this is something like we don't take this lightly, and it's not like we have done this in a few weeks. We have been working on this for years with many very bright people thinking with us and going over it, and so it's work in progress. We are also still improving because it is such a big project. But I mean, we're seeing some actual results, and so it is possible, but it's challenging and ambitious, I have to say. So to get to your question, so about the flight emissions, I think that we have to be very realistic. We are not going to stop traveling, and we shouldn't stop traveling, because tourism also brings a lot of good things to a destination and to the people. Only to think of 1 out of 10 people worldwide are working in tourism. So if we would stop tourism or taking flights, the consequences are massive. But this is all the more reason to have a positive impact with your trip. So if you do take that flight, make sure that it counts. Make sure that you have the greatest positive impact that you can have to make up for that flight. And also, we cannot deny that flying has a massive impact, and this means, and you can read this in our in our climate action plan, we have to fly less. There is no other way. We cannot continue in the way we are doing this now. So we are working together with our DMCs to talk about this, to see how we can do this. We are offering trips to Europe as an alternative to your long haul trip. So and also if you travel in Europe, you don't have to fly. There are many opportunities for taking a train or traveling by electric car. And what we also do is we help travelers to make this trip by train, and give them the information they need for how this trip is, where do they have to change trains, and all this information. And also when it comes to electrical cars, we give them the information about recharging, everything, etc. So yeah, so tourism is not going to stop, and we shouldn't, but make the biggest positive impact as you can, and fly less. There is no other solution. We have to really stop flying as much as we do now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daisy. Now another question coming in is very much in line with that, and I would like to pose that question to you, Thomas. There's a lot of flight shame in Europe, and for very obvious reasons, for sustainability reasons. So for environment, it's better to not fly, but for local communities that need income from tourism to survive, and which incomes help them further grow and develop, they very much need that. How do you balance that at Scholte?
Yeah, it's a bit the same as with Better Places, as Daisy said. It's like you have to make good choices. It's better to travel once a year in a long haul trip than make 3 long haul trips for 1 week, go for 1 long trip for 3 weeks. That's already an improvement. Minimize the transfers within one country. Think logical. But coming back to the question, is like, if you take away all tourism, it will have an immense impact. The flight shaming is one thing indeed, but if you take it out and you don't send clients, or people don't go to Africa, for example, anymore, you can ask yourself the question, what is the purpose of a national park? Can a national park be sustainable for a government to maintain it as it is at the moment? Because tourism generates such an amount of money, local community profit of it, so much employment is involved. All those things have an incredible positive impact, and also differs from poaching. You get less the areas where the management of the national parks or the wildlife areas is well maintained, and there's enough tourism that generates enough money. Poaching numbers really go down. So improving the wealth of your destination in general, the middle class and the wealth, means that a country is getting better. Nature will profit from it. People will profit from it. And if you take out travel, then yeah, you don't leave it. I think it's more negative not traveling than traveling, in a way.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Now there was another question coming in. I think, Jasper, I would like to ask that question to you. Is there already a scientific way to measure the degree of leaving the destination in a better condition?
Yeah, if we're talking about an undisputed way how to measure this, the simple answer, I'm afraid, is no. But if you look at the business level, for example, I'm very inspired by the example from Better Places from Daisy. But in science, we're looking at often the destination level, and to measure that on the destination level is rather difficult, because sometimes it's much more complex than in reality. You have problems with subjectivity. Things as CO2 you can measure relatively easy, and there are standards for that. But increase of well-being, they're often quite subjective things you can measure. Sometimes you have indirect effects, impacts. And we even have problems with already measuring sustainability. That's still disputed in science. So I think we have a long way to go when we want to measure regenerative tourism. But like I said, do it on the business level to see how you're performing, and how you can maybe inform your clients to make different choices. I think that's already a very good start.
How would you feel about that, Daisy? I saw you eager to reply.
Yeah, you saw that right. So yeah, I agree that a lot of what we measure is very hard to put numbers to it, and is based on assumptions. But we have to start somewhere, and this is where we start. And the next step, of course, when we get this all together, the next step is to go more into depth and see, like, we assume that a certain homestay that we use often in Peru, for example, has a positive impact on the community, on the people. So the next step is to find out whether this is actually the case. And this can also mean that if we find out that the impact, that the positive impact that we assumed we were having is not the case, then we have to stop offering this. So this is not a very popular way of working, but we have to be strict in this. And so it is the next step, but we have to start somewhere. And as long as there's no industry standard or framework coming from the industry that helps us do it, we are going to do it ourselves.
Thank you very much. Now, there are many interesting questions to ask to you and to discuss, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So I would like to go to the final part of this this session about closure. So about some final thoughts, Jasper, do you have any final recommendations for our audience?
Yeah, I do. I've realized that we put a lot of information on you on a very big topic. So I can imagine you're wondering where to start. And for me, that starts, I think, with taking a good look in the mirror and ask yourself, what do I want to get out of tourism? How can I make my tourism region better? So really look into your business DNA, or what that could be in the future, and base all your choices on that core value. So determine what this value is to your community. How can it make your community better? And for example, also understand your supply chain. As an example, we talked about single-use plastic. Imagine you are a hotel and you say, I want to do it in a regenerative way. So then don't cooperate with a company that offers lots of single-use plastic, but go for the alternative. So make choices like that. That would be my, so start small and expand.
Great. Now, Daisy, what would be your final recommendation if you could give one?
Unmute myself first. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone for attending this this webinar, because like Jasper said, it's a lot of information. And if you have specific questions or we can help you with anything, feel free to send us an email at info@betterplaces.nl. We are happy to help other companies to grow in their regenerative and sustainable tourism. So my final thoughts would be ethical and be transparent about your actions. So try to avoid greenwashing and do as you say you're doing, and stop using carbon offsetting as a solution, because as long as there is no real solution, we have to fly less. It's not a popular recommendation, but it is the only way. And then last but not least, make it count. So offering regenerative tourism is not about growth, but it's about quality and about impact. So don't take a flight each year. And if you do, travel for as long as possible and try to have the biggest positive impact on the people and the planet. Yes, and that's my final thoughts. Thank you.
Great. Last but not least, Thomas, what are your final recommendations?
There's always a difficult one getting at the end, because all the final thoughts of the other people are similar to my final thoughts. But indeed, like, start small, think about every action you're taking in the whole process. It's a process, and then there's not one answer. It's just one question: what is regenerative travel? What can we do? There's not one solution. There's no one answer. It's all those small parts you're doing in the process, and if you add that up, then the whole balance will tip to the positive side. So if I would say, like, sustainable tourism is a sort of a low bar, and at the end of the day, it's not making things worse. That's sustainable tourism. But regenerative, say, let's make it better for future generations. So keep that in mind. Focus on those 13 things Jasper told us about. Keep it on top of mind, and then go for it.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for those inspiring and beautiful words. Now, Arthur, do you have any final recommendations for our audience?
Hi, Tjalling. Yes, I have one addition to make to all the wonderful presentation that we've seen today. And for that, I will need to share my screen as well. So there we are, I think. Yes. So my recommendation has to do with CBI and the wonderful study that was written about regenerative tourism. So let me first tell everyone about where you can find the studies. That's www.cbi.eu/tourism. And on there you will find that we have over 40 studies in the tourism sector. Studies are categorized around a couple of big blocks. We have studies interesting and about the sector, tourism as a whole. Specific tip studies where you can find buyers, tips to do business, tips how to work on your digitalization or your sustainability. and we have studies about specific tourism niches. And I would like to give you a quick overview what that looks like on the internet. So if all goes well, you will see my browser right now. So this is the CBI website. So again, you go to market information, and you will see we have lots of more sectors, but of course today's topic is tourism, so we're going to pick tourism. This is the overview page. One thing I would like to highlight is very interesting, something that we did recently, which is the tourism infographic. So if you're looking to expand, for example, your businesses into a new niche and you want to get an overview of what niches are out there, please check it out. We don't have time to look at it today, but definitely I would recommend you do that after this webinar. Here you see the sector studies, tip studies. So we have lots of tips, as you can see. And then the niche markets. Topic of today, of course, regenerative tourism. So I'm going to open it for you. So this is the study. Studies are available on the, I'm looking right now at my laptop, but we also have a mobile website. So that's very easy and convenient to scroll through. All studies work in the same way. So you have the contents of your page. So I noticed today a lot of questions came in about certification. And if I'm interested in that particular part, you can just click on it, and then straight away you get to the section that you need. And a last thing to mention about this study, which is nice, is we've heard a lot of good examples today from Thomas, Daisy, and Jasper. And in the study itself, we have a couple of examples from around the world about regenerative tourism. So that's also nice homework, so to say. And I think with showing you that we've almost come to the end of this webinar. On behalf of CBI, I would like to thank you very much for attending, and of course many thanks to our great panel, Jasper, Thomas, and Daisy, for all the great insights. And then back to you, Tjalling, to close the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arthur, and thank you much everybody for joining our panel on regenerative tourism. Now, one final recommendation from my side is to attend as well to the Opportunities in Cycling Tourism webinar, which will be on September 13, 2022. So, well, it will take a while, but please notice this in your agenda if you found this interesting. For now, I would like to close off and thank everybody for joining us. Thank you to the experts, but mainly thanks to you for joining us and being here. See you next time.